These are the highest paying medical careers. Hey everybody, my name is Hisham Khan and welcome to Income Over Outcome, where I give you tips for your career and saving money. A common theme on my channel is that healthcare is one of the best industries to work in because the work you do has a huge impact, it pays really well, and the industry is growing like crazy, so you're always going to have a job. I already have a few videos where I talk about jobs on the business side of healthcare and even on the highest paid doctor specialties, but this video goes way beyond that. I'm not going to focus on just doctors or surgeons. We're going to talk about all types of medical careers. But before we get into it, comment which one you think is going to be the #1 spot. Quick hint, it pays well over $200,000. Coming in at number 10, we have pharmacists. Now if you saw my video on degrees with the lowest unemployment rates, then you know pharmacists have been doing really well over the last few months. But pharmacy isn't the best field to go into because it's actually shrinking and there's way more people trying to become pharmacists than actual jobs available. That's why it ranks at the very end of this list. Pharmacy pays really well, but the issue is it's just a bit oversaturated right now. Plus you have to go through 4 years of pharmacy school, and that could be really expensive. In 2020, the average pharmacy grad had around $179,000 in debt. That's a huge risk to take considering you're not guaranteed a job. Even if you do find a job, it'll take a ton of time to pay that off with a median salary of $128,000. Word to the wise, never take out more student loans than your salary is going to be once you graduate, because when you add in all of the interest, it makes it really difficult to pay it off. That's not to say it's impossible and that if you take out student loans, you'll be drowning in debt for the rest of your life. You just have to be smart with your money. In 9th place are physical therapists. Now physical therapy is a great career if you're really into health and fitness, but you also want a practical career where you can help people. You'll become an expert in using exercise to help people through their injuries and even with their disabilities. Now it is a medical career, so the education is serious. After you get a bachelor's, you're going to need a doctorate in physical therapy, and most of those programs are at least 3 years long. Most of what you learn is in a classroom, but you also get hands-on clinical experience, and that's really important. Plus you have to pass a state license test like you do with any medical career. The salary for physical therapists are way lower than pharmacists at $89,000, so you have to be really careful with taking out too many student loans. But the reason it ranks higher is because the field is growing super quickly, at 18%, so it'll be much easier to find a job as a physical therapist than a pharmacist. At number 8, we have nurse midwives. These are people who are dedicated to helping women throughout their pregnancies. They do things like ultrasounds, testing, and even helping during actual birth. A CNM can actually prescribe medicine, unlike most other nurses, and they have way more responsibilities. But you do have to become a nurse first, so the first step is to get a bachelor's degree in nursing. Then you'll need to become licensed as an RN to officially become a nurse. And most people choose to work as a regular nurse for 1 or 2 years just to get some experience, but you don't have to. The important piece is to get a master's or doctorate in nursing with a specialty in nurse midwifery. After you graduate from that, you can become certified as a nurse midwife and apply for a license to practice in your state. Overall, the process can take up to 6 years after you get your bachelor's, which might sound like a lot of time, but it's well worth it because your median salary is $109,000 and there's high demand for the job. If you're still watching this video, then you're a real one, and I would really appreciate it if you went ahead and hit that like button and notification bell. That'll help us defeat the YouTube algorithm. Holding the 7th spot, we have physician's assistants. Now I won't go into too much detail on these because I talked all about them in my video on the fastest growing jobs. But it's definitely one of the best medical careers you could go into based on every single metric you look at. Like I talked about in that other video, demand for people who help doctors, like nurses and physician's assistants, is growing way faster than actual doctors. That's because these people can do pretty much the same things as a doctor, but because they go to less school, hospitals can pay them less. So it makes more sense for a hospital to hire a physician's assistant than a doctor. Plus the work you do has a huge impact on patients, and you still make a decent amount of money with an average salary of $112,000. Now I get to talk about one of my personal favorite medical careers, optometrists, also known as eye doctors. And it's not just because it's a great career, but because I'm blind as a bat. This is literally what I see when I'm not wearing glasses, so I definitely couldn't get through life without my optometrist. If you want to become an optometrist, then you need to get a bachelor's degree and get a passing grade on the OAT, or optometry admissions test. Then you can apply to a Doctor of Optometry program, which takes around 4 years to finish. Once you graduate, you can get a 1-year residency, which isn't a requirement, but it definitely helps in finding a job. You'll also need to pass the optometry board exams to get a license to practice. And the optometry boards are no joke. They're split into 3 different parts. Each has around 300 questions, and they can take anywhere from 3.5 to 4 hours to finish. Some states might have another test to get licensed, and there's a whole bunch of certifications you can get that'll help you increase your job prospects and your pay. But for the most part, all you have to do is pass your boards, and once you do that, you'll be making an average salary of $115,000. If you're willing to go another route and go to med school instead of optometry school and put 4 extra years into residency, then you can become an ophthalmologist who does actual eye surgeries, and you can make way more money, with the average ophthalmologist making $378,000. Coming in hot at number 5, we have nurse practitioners, another one I talked about in my video on the fastest growing jobs. One big benefit of becoming a nurse instead of a doctor is you actually get to spend way more time with patients. Surprisingly, a lot of what doctors do are boring administrative stuff, and every doctor I know says it's the worst part of their job. It's something they never sign up for, but it takes up the most amount of their time. If you want a clinical job where you focus on taking care of patients, have insanely high job prospects, and really good pay, nurse practitioners are it, with an average salary of $116,000. In 4th place are podiatrists, also known as feet doctors. I first heard of podiatrists back when I was in high school, and it was really weird to me that there's this job dedicated to working on feet. But hey, if that's what you're into, knock yourself out. As we get older, I definitely understand why they're important though. You might need a podiatrist if you find your feet hurt while you're walking, if you have calluses on your feet, and even if you break your foot, because podiatrists design foot braces. To become a podiatrist, you need a doctor of podiatric medicine and a 2-year residency. You also need to pass a 2-part board exam, and you can also specialize in either primary care or surgery. The median salary is $126,000, but a lot of experienced podiatrists make well over $180,000. The only downside is that demand for podiatrists isn't growing at all, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because jobs aren't being lost like with pharmacy, but you're going to have to look harder to find a job. Now we're getting into the top 3. If you haven't commented which one you think is going to be the number 1 spot, take a second to do that right now. Coming in 3rd place, we have dentists. Now, dentists are one of the best medical fields because of the work-life balance. You could work regular office hours from 9 to 5, whereas a lot of the other jobs on this list have to work insane hours and be on call all the time. If you want to go to dental school, then you have to take all of the right prereqs in undergrad, classes like bio, chem, and physics. Then at least 1 year before you plan to apply to schools, you have to take the dental admissions test. Once you graduate, you'll have to take the national board exams and pass the state clinical test to get your license. And if you want to specialize in something like orthodontics, then you have to set aside 1 or 2 years for a residency. All in all, it can take more than 6 years after undergrad before you start practicing as a dentist, and you'll make around $159,000. But if you run your own private practice, you can make a ton more money. At number 2, we have certified nurse anesthesiologists, otherwise known as CRNAs. I worked really closely with CRNAs during one of my internships in college, and it's a wild job. You're basically a nurse who specializes to give people drugs that can knock them out. From my experience, the difference between a full-on anesthesiologist and a CRNA is that anesthesiologists really just manage what CRNAs are doing. They have to split their time monitoring a bunch of different procedures, constantly jumping from room to room, while CRNAs do most of the heavy lifting. Anesthesiologists really only step in if something super complicated happens or if there's not enough CRNAs. You might think that all they do is put a patient under, chill throughout the whole entire procedure, and then wake them up, but it's way more complicated than that. CRNAs actually have to monitor patients throughout the entire procedure to make sure nothing goes wrong. The job is super fast paced and you have to be 100% focused 100% of the time. One small mistake and your patient could die. With all that responsibility, you would hope that CRNAs make a lot of money, and they do. The average CRNA makes $181,000, but in most hospitals, CRNAs also get paid overtime. So the ones I worked with worked a ton of hours and they got paid way more. It's pretty simple. If you want to make more money, just work more hours. The path to becoming a CRNA is a little complicated because you have to become a regular nurse first and have at least 1 year of experience working at a hospital. Most nurses have at least 3 years of experience before they try to become a CRNA. When you have that experience, you can apply to a master's in nurse anesthesia program, and once you graduate from that, you can go ahead and get your certification. You can also get a doctorate degree, which will give you an upper hand in getting a job, but it isn't a requirement right now. But by 2025, all CRNAs are going to need a doctorate degree, so you might as well go ahead and get it. Too many people have realized what a great job it is, so hopefully increasing the educational requirements controls how many people go into the field so it doesn't end up like pharmacy, where there's way too many grads and not enough jobs. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we have psychiatrists. Simply put, psychiatrists are psychologists, but they have a medical degree so they can prescribe medicine. Since you have to go to med school and finish a residency in psychiatry, it can take upwards of 9 years before you become a psychiatrist. But you'll be rolling in the dough with a median salary of $220,000. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and click here to subscribe if you haven't already. And check out one of these dope videos. Until next time, peace.